Hey lambs, Kai here. I just wanted to come on and say that I'm really, really sick right now. I was trying to wait it out so I could record this episode for you, but as the days wore on, my throat got more and more raw, and I just don't think I'll be able to record the episode. So in order to get the episode out on time, I am going to have my AI co-hosts do it for you, Jane, Jessica, and Jensen. This is why I have them. Because, it's just me who does this. But rest assured, even though you hear their voices, everything was researched and written by me. They're just here to help me out. So I do want to thank you for your patience, for your understanding, and for helping me continue to be the voice of the victims, even when I can't be a voice. So without further ado, I'm going to let Jensen, Jessica, and Jane take it away. Now part of the Darkcast Network. Welcome to Indie Podcasts with a Dark Side.
On the night of April 27th, 2018, on a gravel road in Monroe County, Missouri, Glenn McSparran saw something strange in his headlights.
I saw what appeared to be a body next to a car. I couldn't believe what I was seeing at first.
Glenn pulled over, walked closer, and realized she wasn't moving.
I looked in her eyes and I could tell she was gone.
He called 911 anyway to report what he'd found. When police arrived, they saw that the victim was positioned just outside the driver's side of her car. She had been shot once in the back of the head at close range, but police were able to identify the victim as 35-year-old Molly Watson. Officers noted that she was dressed casually, and she still had on her engagement ring. Inside her car, they found a marriage license with her name and her fiancé's, James Addy. Apparently, their wedding was scheduled for 2 days later.
Welcome to Love and Murder, Heartbreak to Homicide, your weekly true crime podcast that tells you cases of relationships that can end in betrayal, obsession, and murder. I'm AI Jensen. I know that every Monday, Kai brings you your full episode, but unfortunately, this week she's sick, so me, Jane, and Jessica are taking over, bringing you this case that was researched and written by Kai. Each episode is always done with the victim in mind, so you may hear some ranting and ravings along the way. Before we get into today's case, a quick reminder that Love and Murder is listener-funded. That means no big network backing us, just you, the Lamb Fam, keeping this podcast alive. That's why Kai started the Patreon, patreon.com/loveandmurder. By joining, you're helping her continue to be a voice for the victims while getting something in return. Bonus episodes, exclusive case extras, ad-free listening, behind-the-scenes content, and entire series like Deadly Duos and Serial Killer Corner. You can even join for free and get a few perks, but if you want the full experience, sign up for one of our bonus tiers starting at $3 per month and above at patreon.com/loveandmurder. Now, I know that you're only used to hearing Kai say this part, but grab your butts, grab your glass of apple juice, and let's get into today's case of love and murder.
Molly Watson was a single mother who loved singing and making costumes. Friends said she lived for her son and her passions. In her early 20s, she married her first husband, but they divorced after 2 years. Throughout the divorce process, Molly found out that she was pregnant with their son. After the divorce, she dated a childhood friend, Amber Brady, for 5 years.
Molly said, "She was actually my first girlfriend, and I was hers. She was married at the time, but I was too. Things weren't going well for either one of us."
Amber said,
"I think we could talk. We could communicate. We liked doing a lot of the same things. It just seemed to click."
Their relationship ended when Amber found Molly with a man she didn't recognize. She'd caught them at a motel.
I went up there and knocked on the door. She answered. James Addy was getting dressed and leaving. That wasn't good.
Molly had met James Addy around 2011 at the Moberly Area Correctional Center, where they both worked as corrections officers, a new job she had gotten not too long ago. Despite their 16-year age difference, Molly fell in love immediately, telling family that James was finalizing a divorce. Sometime after the first incident, Amber caught James and Molly together again at a gas station, which led to Molly and Amber going their separate ways.
I didn't have any type of friendship or anything to do with Molly when things ended. She had blocked me on everything, that was fine. I mean, it wasn't a good breakup.
By 2018, after dating for 7 years, James finally told Molly that his divorce was finalized in October 2017. Taking the initiative, Molly proposed to James. Her brother Tim Watson said that she was, quote, absolutely 100% in love with James. As an avid Disney fan, Molly had envisioned a princess-themed wedding featuring red and gold colors like Beauty and the Beast. The wedding was planned for April 2018, and she bought 2 dresses because she couldn't choose just one. The bride-to-be commissioned Crystal Graves Yazitchi and Tabitha Shilb for hair and makeup services, specifically requesting Disney-themed styling.
She was so excited. We had been working on a wedding that was Beauty and the Beast, and we were like, we're very familiar with doing this very Disney-themed wedding.
Sam Cohen, their wedding planner, said,
There was a lot of burgundy and gold. Kind of reminded me of a Renaissance kind of themed wedding. From Molly's perspective, it was going to be a beautiful wedding and the best day ever. James was kind of the opposite of Molly. He was very quiet, didn't show much enthusiasm. I just thought he was just a groom along for the ride.
But those close to Molly never warmed up to James. Tim described him saying,
He could never look you in the eye. He could never talk to you directly. Everything was very evasive with him. He was just always very standoffish. He'd look down when you talked to him, very short responses. He put off bad vibes to everybody.
Her parents found him standoffish, and her cousin, Jodie Lindbergh, was so anxious that she told Molly that she wouldn't attend the wedding.
In my last text message to Molly, I said, but you know how I feel about weddings and funerals. I kind of have a thing anyway that I just kind of avoid weddings and funerals. Never would have thought that I would have been going to her funeral that next week instead of her wedding.
James repeatedly postponed wedding preparation meetings, claiming he needed to handle funeral arrangements. I know, you're asking me, funeral? What funeral? Well, according to James, when he and Melanie Addy divorced, she'd been in a car accident and died after being removed from life support. Finally, on April 25th, Molly and James went to apply for a marriage license. The Randolph County Recorder of Deeds who prepped the couple's license, Mark Price, said James appeared perturbed by some of his questions.
I asked if he had been married before and how it ended. He was just like, why do you need to know that?
2 days later, during a final wedding meeting, Sam said that James had dropped off decorations and centerpieces at the venue.
He seemed just like he did in every other meeting that I met him. Really quiet, didn't say much. And I do recall, as I was walking him out the door, I asked if he's getting excited, and his one comment was that Molly was driving him crazy.
It was later that night that Molly's body was found. Monroe County Sheriff's deputies arrived at the murder scene within minutes of Glenn's call. They secured the perimeter and documented the scene. Investigators determined that Molly had been killed execution style. The location, a remote area with hardly any traffic, made it clear the spot had been chosen on purpose. Forensics teams collected tire impressions and footprints from the soft ground surrounding the car. They also recovered a single shell casing, which they logged into evidence. Not far from the car, they found a blood-stained T-shirt that tested positive for Molly's DNA, and her phone was traced several miles away, showing it had been tossed after the murder. Remember that they also found the marriage license? Well, this prompted investigators to do a background check on James Addy, and what they uncovered was secrets Molly never even knew about. When police went to his house to notify him of Molly's death, they were surprised when his wife stepped out of their bedroom to find out who was at the door. His double life crumbled right before their eyes. Melanie learned that her husband had been engaged to another woman, and that woman had just been murdered. Confronted with the affair, James admitted,
I got myself involved in something I shouldn't have.
Detectives immediately got a warrant for James's car, a maroon Mercury. The tire tread matched the impression at the scene. A particle of gunshot residue was found inside the car, and the white T-shirt recovered near the scene matched other shirts his daughter had printed for a class project. 51-year-old James was a long-time corrections officer. To his wife Melanie, a teacher's assistant, he was a family man. They had been married 23 years and had 2 teenage children, Emma and Ben. Melanie said
Jim had no tolerance for people that had affairs. He absolutely hated it, so I would never have thought of him having an affair. Never. I thought he was dedicated to his family. He was home every night. If I missed something, I don't know what it was. We got along well. He was very charming and sweet and engaging.
In hindsight, she saw warning signs. He often came home 2 hours late from work, took trips to Florida and Mexico with vague explanations, and she had to admit to herself that he acted controlling at times.
He would get off work at 3, and usually he would get home at 5, and I would say, "Why are you always so late?"
Melanie said that James had been, quote, controlling and intimidating, and described him as a pretty selfish person. Even so, she still never thought that he was capable of maintaining such an elaborate double life. For 7 years, James balanced 2 lives. With Molly, he played the role of fiancé. With Melanie, he acted as if nothing had changed, coming back home every night and criticizing cheaters. Molly, trusting her fiancé, never investigated his past. Until the week of her death. James was arrested in the early morning hours of April 28th, hours after the murder. Not long after that, Melanie went searching through their home. In a lofted storage space above the garage, she found pictures of James and Molly together at Disney World. She also found boxes of Molly's things and a photo album filled with pictures from a trip they had taken to Mexico. Melanie filed for divorce a few weeks later. Their daughter Emma learned of her father's arrest from a friend's social media post, while getting ready for her junior prom.
I can't even imagine how that ruined her night.
After this, she cut all contact with him. James was charged with first-degree murder and armed criminal action. His trial began in April 2021. The prosecution argued that he killed Molly to keep his double life from being exposed. Their reasoning behind this claim was that forensics examiner Patrick Sublette pulled information from Molly's iPhone. On April 26th, just a day before she was killed, she had searched for obituary notices for Melanie Addy. Then her DriveSense app tracked her final movements the next evening. Phone records between Molly's phone and James's secret phone showed a 22-minute call between them at 8:30 p.m., followed by a string of unanswered texts and 4 calls from him between 9:30 and 11 p.m. Prosecutors argued she was about to discover that the woman James claimed was dead, was very much alive. On April 27th, the day of her murder, James went through the motions of wedding preparation. That evening, Melanie said James came into the living room around 7 p.m. and said that he was going to a friend's house. Emma said that she saw him leave. James told police that he'd planned to visit a friend, Jamie Lunsford, but Jamie testified that they had no plans to meet. Emma said her father came back home around 10 p.m., an unusual time for him, and she later heard him running the washing machine and taking a shower. Melanie then went to bed and woke at 2 a.m. to flashing police lights outside. Officers were at their door with devastating news. A woman named Molly Watson had been murdered, and she was supposed to marry her husband in 2 days. Glenn then testified that on that night, he was taking a shortcut to drop his daughter off at his mother's house. The road was remote, surrounded by woods with a creek running across it. On the way, he'd seen 2 cars stopped at a low water crossing. He described one of the cars as a bigger 4-door, dark-coloured grandma car. This car drove towards Glenn, and he saw that the driver was a short, older man. He asked the driver if the other car was stuck, and the man said, quote, "I don't know where they're at. It's going to be a while." Glenn then backed out and took the main highway to his mother's house instead. Feeling that something wasn't right, Glenn decided to drive back along the same gravel road to check on things. When he got to the low water crossing, only 1 car was there. The grandma car was gone. As he got closer, his headlights illuminated something lying on the road in front of the car.
When I saw her, I swear my heart stopped. I could tell she wasn't moving.
Melanie took the stand against her ex-husband in what she described as, quote, "a just horrible experience."
You don't want to be there. I don't want to be in a position where I'm hurting him.
Ultimately, she testified that she believed James was capable of murder, describing him as a pretty selfish person who could be controlling and intimidating.
It just seemed like something he would do to fix a problem.
2 jailhouse informants then told the court that they'd heard James brag,
"I put someone face down in a ditch."
In defense, James maintained his innocence. His lawyers focused on the lack of direct evidence and challenged the reliability of the state's forensic testimony. They sought to exclude the tire track testimony, arguing tire impression analysis lacked scientific reliability. They pointed out that while there were studies on footwear impressions, there was no similar study for tire impressions. The judge ultimately allowed it. Then his lawyer pointed out there were no eyewitnesses and no murder weapon recovered. And that was it. That was their defense. James did not take the stand in his own defense. After days of testimony, the jury found James Addy guilty of first-degree murder and armed criminal action. At sentencing in July 2021, James read a love letter to Molly and blamed his attorney for his conviction.
"There is no way that I could have done this crime. The only one I hold at fault in this entire process is my attorney, because he had the means and he had the ability to present my case and failed to do it whenever I asked him."
He then asked for a new trial. The judge was unmoved. He sentenced James to life in prison without the possibility of parole for the murder, plus a consecutive 10 years for armed criminal action. He appealed, but it was rejected. Although, according to US law, justice had been served, Molly's family was shattered. Her brother Tim said,
"I feel like James Addy took my entire family away from me."
Molly's father died of a heart attack in 2020, and her mother died months later, which Tim attributed to a broken heart. Melanie was also in shambles and said the discovery was, quote, "mind-boggling. It didn't seem right. This was not my life." What happened on that rural road in April 2018 began with a 911 call and ended with a man behind bars and 2 families destroyed. Molly Watson believed she was hours away from her dream wedding. Instead, she fell victim to a man who built a life on secrets and lies, and whose solution to being found out was murder.
What did you think of this case? Let us know your thoughts in the comments or over on the Patreon. We always want to hear what the Lamb fam thinks. Patreon.com/loveandmurder. Kai will be back with your full episode next Monday, and that one will require a heavy listener discretion warning. If you want to hear her before next Monday, you can join the Lamb fam to get the new bonus coming out. Patreon.com/loveandmurder. And as Kai ends each full episode, we want to remind you that it's all love and no murder. Thanks for listening all the way to the end, and thank you for your support. I'll see you in the next episode.
Sometimes it's not the loudest stories that keep us up at night. It's the quiet ones, the ones that never quite made the headlines, the ones that left behind more questions than answers. The Final Trace is a true crime podcast about the strange, the unresolved, and the stories that slip through the cracks. From disappearances to mysterious deaths, to cases that were technically solved but still don't sit right. We dig into the overlooked, the eerie, and the human side of every story. Because even when a case goes cold, there's always something left behind. A clue, a feeling, a final trace. Follow The Final Trace wherever you listen to podcasts, and come find what still lingers in the silence. I'm your host, Hopper Daly, and this is The Final Trace.